So you really need to talk to somebody about your situation at that point. Do I reapply now? What do I need to do to reapply? And if I'm going to reapply, how am I going to make my application stand out? And why didn't I get in the first place? And then it's also a discussion of if you should apply that cycle. Some people apply, I think the biggest mistake I see with reapplicants is they apply with the exact same application. So basically they just like regurgitate everything and it goes back to the same schools, and you're not gonna get in because you didn't address the deficiency of not getting in the first place. So that's why you really need to talk to somebody to see what it is and try to identify why you didn't get into school. Acceptance, I think, till March 15th when I was applying, and I was really nervous that I wasn't gonna get in. But then I was a little bit on the later side. I didn't have MedSchoolCoach. I didn't know like when to submit. I was on the later side, but I ended up getting multiple acceptances. So if you look at the data of how many schools people applied to, I want to say the last time I checked it was 15 to 20 is what AMCAS reports as the number of schools students apply to on average. That is far too low. I usually suggest people apply to 30 to 40 schools at least. Sometimes more. Sometimes if you're a very, very top applicant, you can apply maybe to 25. But I would say usually somewhere in around 30 to 40 is the successful applicants. Registered behavioral technician. I mean, it can be considered clinical experience if you're interacting with patients. So I would assume you are, but probably more on the behavioral health side of things. With kids? Yeah, I think importantly though, clinical work is not only patients, but it's also working alongside the healthcare team. So you want to be somebody that is not, you want to interact with patients, but you want to be in the healthcare setting too. So if it was like an after school program and you're just doing behavioral health, that may not be like the best thing. You want to actually be in like a clinical setting with clinical patients. And that's okay. You're volunteering and you're shadowing. Well, I kind of consider clinical work and shadowing separate, as I put in that slide. Shadowing is really just what it is, being a fly on the wall and just watching what physicians are doing is super boring. But it's a good part of to see what physicians do. Your clinical work should be actually part, like you interacting, you doing something, which could be paid or unpaid. And a lot of people are doing that through volunteer clinical work, like volunteering at a medical center.
For the application process.
Yeah, that's a great question. So he asked, like, if I'm applying to 30 to 40 schools, like, how much am I spending? And I mean, it's definitely a lot cheaper to not have to fly, but AMCAS costs money, the secondaries cost money, so, and Casper costs money. You're gonna spend a few $1,000s at the very least. I think when I applied, and this was, I won't date myself, but this was a while ago, and I did go to several interviews. I spent probably around $8,000 for the application cycle, but things have cost more, but that was me traveling too. So, and there's ways you can offset the cost, like if you do have to travel, you can stay, lots of times students will host interviewing students, you could stay at their house, you don't have to pay for a hotel, things like that, but it is a very costly process. Yeah, that's a great question. So for those of you who maybe didn't hear, she asked, like, can I do any type of research or does it have to be like biology research? I would have, I think the best case scenario is having some scientific research as well. But once you kind of have that foundation of doing some basic science research, so you learn some skills in the lab, you know, like they want to see that you know we've done something a little bit different than some of the other traditional pre-meds. I was talking to somebody today about applying to California schools and just trying to stay in California. And probably most of you have this problem, right? Of like, and I did too. Like, I'm from California, I want to stay in California, but California schools are so competitive. The fact of the matter is, you are going to have to apply out of state if you want to, enhance your chances. Because if you only apply to California schools, you're limiting yourself to 10 to 12 medical schools total. So you have to apply out. Once you step out of your state of residence, you really want to look at the factors in the school, like how many out-of-state students they accept. And so he brought up Texas, and I think because Texas accepts, like, most schools only accept like 10% out-of-state students. So your chances alone being just out of state definitely are lower. So I don't say not apply, but that may not be where you want to, put all your eggs in the Texas basket, so to speak. Yeah, that's a really good question. She asked, for the extracurriculars, is there anything that's like weighted more heavily? Not necessarily. I mean, you really want to have experience in everything as much as possible of those categories that I talked about. And you want to have depth of experience in each. I will say though, for the top tier schools, and I'm talking like Stanford, Harvard, those schools are a little bit more research heavy. So most applicants that are really trying to go to top tier want to have some heavy research and publication under their belt.